we in the U.S. have this, we've lived through Me Too since the Harvey Weinstein thing, right? And we understand our concept of Me Too. And this concept of Me Too, just meaning a new woke awareness of sex harassment issues, is in some form happening all over the world. So when you say that, you say, okay, great. We don't tolerate sex harassment, especially in this Me Too environment. And now that I just heard that there's Me Too is taken off all over the world, we should have a global Me Too policy. After all, the Me Too concept is understood around the world, or at least it's known. I would push back and say that way to be careful, because how Me Too plays out in different countries is fascinating, but it's very different. And here we have a significant cultural difference. And I thought of, how am I going to make this point? And I thought of a way to do it. 2 newspaper articles, which I'll hold up here, both came out the same date, which was February 20th of this year, 2020. So these are 2 articles from February 20. And let me just read you a little bit about them, because I'm leading up to a point that I think is going to be clear. Same day, right? One is about, and they're both, by the way, about Me Too protests, where people, particularly women, hit the streets and protested with signs, making a big protest or picket based on Me Too issues. The first is called Women Protest Violence, Testing López Obrador, who's the president of Mexico. And there's a picture of a protest in Mexico, and it's about a protest that just happened in February of 2020, because women weren't tolerating the blatant sexual unfairness or gender unfairness going on in the country. And what it says is that there were a rash of killings. It says masked female protesters clashed with police over the past week and lit fires in the city's central square. They also spray painted slogans on the walls of the National Palace. They were protesting allegations of kidnapping and rape by Mexico City police officers. The police are raping people, and they're protesting this. Not surprisingly, right? A 25-year-old woman was found murdered and dismembered in her home. Her husband had killed her and skinned her corpse and removed several organs to make her harder to identify. And the police were allegedly complicit with this. They went to the president of Mexico, López Obrador, and according to this article, they weren't satisfied with his response, because he said something about how he was going to sell the president airplane to save tax money. So he diverted the issue and didn't want to talk about these horrible killings that were going on. And so again, the people went out in the streets and protested. You could say, hey, Me Too's hitting Mexico. The women are in the streets protesting the gross unfairness on how the police are treating women and responding to complaints about violence against women. That happened. Same day in the U.S., newspaper, also February 20th, also protests. Look at the picture here. It says Boo Bernardo. These are women out on the streets in Broadway, New York, protesting on a Me Too issue. What are they protesting in this case? It's called West Side Encounters Me Too. A cast member's past touches off a protest at a Broadway theater. This is an article from the New York Times. And what it's about is that there's a Broadway actor that in the new version of West Side Story, a guy named Ramasar, who earlier, years ago, had shared or had sent on his cell phone a naked picture of his girlfriend to another guy. One guy. He didn't put it up online. It wasn't revenge porn or anything like that. Not to defend that, of course. These women are protesting how horrible that was. And one of the girlfriends then, however, came out and she said, this is the girlfriend whose naked picture was sent. She said, it's shocking to me that these protests are still happening, said his ex-girlfriend, a city ballet dancer, in the photographs. She declared herself, she said, I'm not a victim. However, there was a second woman. This guy had done it to 2 women. The other woman was indeed saying, hey, I am a victim. And this guy sent out pictures of me several years ago, and therefore he shouldn't be cast in the Broadway play. Of course, the producers of the play said, hey, that's not on our watch. This happened several years ago, and he's still in our play. And that's why there were protests in the streets. My point is, think of the women in Mexico who are protesting these killings, and then think of the women on Broadway protesting because this guy tweeted a naked picture several years ago of the girlfriend. Not minimizing. We're in the U.S. We understand in our concept of Me Too why those women in Broadway are protesting on Broadway. I'm not minimizing that. But I'm saying I don't think you're going to see a protest like that in Mexico. They've got much bigger Me Too things to worry about in Mexico. And obviously, I spent that much time on those 2 news articles to make the point that in your company, it's similar. That goes back to that Brazilian story I told earlier. In other countries, even though they'll tell you, yes, we have a version of Me Too here and we're aware of Me Too, the way the culture processes these issues is very different. And so if you have a global initiative on sex harassment or Me Too, you need to think through how that's working.